So you want to be a registered dietitian? You are in the right place. My name is Jenny Westerkamp, founder of All Access Dietetics, and your host for Dear Future Dietitian, a podcast dedicated to helping you feel more confident in every step of your journey towards that RD credential. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to this episode and investing in yourself and your future career. I can already tell you're going to be a rockstar dietitian. Now let's get into it. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. This is really going to be like a solo intro episode to properly introduce myself and share my story of being a dietitian now for 13 years, having a career in entrepreneurship, sports nutrition, wellness, writing, media, smoothie shop manager, all sorts of things that I've done over my career that will help you to realize, the type of journey you're in for when you become a registered dietitian and see kind of the ups and downs and the limitless possibilities that you can have in this career. So I'm going to go through and just give you all like the ins and outs, and hopefully you enjoy it. So let's start with just a really quick personal background. I think it's helpful to know because then a lot of what I'll say after that will make more sense. But I am from Chicago. I grew up with 5 younger brothers. So I was the oldest in my family of 6 kids, 5 younger brothers. Sports was very much a part of our lives. And also the Chicago Bulls. We were growing up in the 90s, and very much our summers were revolved around the Chicago Bulls and all the other Chicago sports teams. And then my brothers played sports. I was like the cheerleader. I played some sports in grade school and high school, but never like athletic at all. So from there, my parents are both business owners. And so I definitely had exposure to entrepreneurship growing up. My dad owns a healthcare management type company. He's in IT. And then my mom had a quilting business, and she still like submits designs to magazines and kind of like that creative, artsy, type of person. So that was going on. And then when I was 10 years old, I actually started a scrunchie business with her, and she helped me work craft shows. And I was so excited to launch that business and sell and make money of my own. That was really fun. And then when I was 12, I actually built my first website. So my dad being in IT, he really taught us all how to use the computer, and we had computers, and he encouraged us to use them and get comfortable with them. So I felt really kind of advanced in that because I was building websites by 12, and a lot of my classmates maybe were struggling to use like Microsoft Word at the time. So that's the background. That kind of sets the stage for my upbringing. And then when I got to college, I knew I started as a biology major, and this was in 2006. We'll pick it up here, kind of a first part being my future dietitian years. So I was a biology major and didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do there. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. So then I was exploring the field, and I was initially interested in food science because I thought, that'd be cool to apply my science into a way that kind of impacts people. I was really loving Doritos. I loved Doritos growing up. And I was like, maybe I'll be a Doritos flavor inventor. That would be cool. But didn't work out because I ended up taking a intro to nutrition class. And one of my friends in college was in the dietetics major. So that's how I even knew what a dietitian was. And she encouraged me and told me about her program. And I was like, yeah, I think nutrition is where it's at. From there, in 2007, now before my senior year of college, I ended up getting an internship with the Chicago Blackhawks dietitian. I remember emailing her and being like, I want your life. I was like so fascinated because she had this career in sports, and I knew, I love sports, and she had worked for the Bulls at one point in her career. And I was like, yes, I need to learn from her, get mentored from her, and kind of get my foot in the door. So had that internship with her, go back to school. Now it's my senior year, and I'm applying to dietetic internships. And there's a forum on the Academy website, which isn't there anymore. This was, again, 2008 when this was happening. And it was a student forum. So all these students would join in. It looked like a Reddit thread at the time. And I ended up meeting a fellow RD-to-be from Kansas. Her name was Katie. Katie Proctor now, but Katie Ham at the time. And she and I connected. We kind of became like RD2B virtual besties, and we helped each other. She was actually a year behind me, but we helped each other through the application process and just, really realizing there needed to be like more support. So we ended up, she had the idea to have this catalog of internships so that people could easily shop the internships and know what they liked and didn't like from different programs. And she and I basically said, okay, we're going to start this business and launch this business. So my summer after my senior year, we launched what was then called All Access Internships. We were able to meet in person because she had a Chicago internship at a PR firm called Weber Shandwick, and I was graduated and waiting to start my internship in Boston. So I had gotten matched to Massachusetts General Hospital. And we spent the 3 months recruiting a web developer to join our team as like a partner in the company, and then really building up all of those profiles and starting a community on a Facebook page. That Facebook page ended up getting like 2,000 users within the first month or something of launching it. And it was even written up in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics for being like a great resource for dietetic students before we even launched the actual website. So in 2008 into 2009 is when I was starting my internship and officially launched All Access Internships. But of course, it's your internship year, so I'm very busy. I'm like exploring all the different areas of dietetics. I'm thinking like sports is still an option. Clinical research was something I was somewhat interested in. And then even like public relations, I was thinking, okay, those could all be things that I could try to get a job in, because All Access was not making money right away. We didn't even have a revenue model. We thought we might sell ads, but we didn't know. And we didn't think that went through. It didn't really work. So I'm, just trying to do my best at my internship and running All Access in the lunch hours or like after work or on the train ride home. From there, I then finish up my internship and I get hired by Sport Fuel, which is the company that the Chicago Blackhawks dietitian owns, so like her private practice. And I got a part-time job with her, and then a part-time was going to work on All Access. And that's where it all starts. Oh, and I passed my RD exam, but you guys, at the time, the pass rate was like in the high 80s, like 80%. Now I think the pass rate's like 48% for all attempts. So it's definitely changed, but I studied for about 10 days full time, took it, got the lowest possible score, the 25, to pass the exam. And I was just like on my way. I didn't want to think about it. I just wanted to get it done and, barely passed, but made it happen. Would not recommend that approach now. The exam has changed and gotten harder, but yeah, that was my experience. So now that ends part one of being a future dietitian. And now I'm going to jump into like the next, let's say 5 years of my career, which hopefully you'll see from this, kind of the theme is really exploring a lot of different things, diving into a lot of different things, being very busy. All right. So now it's 2010 and I've done some like training with the Sport Fuel dietitian. Her name is Julie Burns, and she's, mentoring me and helping me, go to different seminars or conferences, learning more about like functional nutrition and endocrinology and like all these things. Like we were helping people with like, it just in this really like holistic way, which was really cool because I didn't get a lot of that in my internship or like in my education. So I'm doing that. And then I get assigned to be the team nutritionist for the Rockford Ice Hogs. So the Ice Hogs are my first team, and they're the affiliate for the Chicago Blackhawks. They're like the minor league team. So I was able to do team talks with them, to sit down with players and do assessments and really kind of dive into that sports nutrition role. And then in addition to that, I joined the Nutrition Entrepreneurs Executive Committee and was able to get on there. And I think I was director of awards and networking or something. So I got involved in a dietetic practice group from there. 2011 is when I expanded more into private practice clients with Sport Fuel. So I was able to also counsel at a wellness center and then counsel patients at a Pilates studio, like through more of a wellness lens, more so around like healthy weight loss. And then again, having like a little bit more of a angle of the functional nutrition, functional medicine, and more holistic approach. Now I'm, with All Access going, it's slowly growing. At this point, Katie has decided to take a full-time career in PR at this point and leave All Access as a partner, which was totally fine and amicable. There was no drama. It was just something where, All Access was not making money at this point. We didn't know what was going on. We just knew we were trying to make it more valuable and add content and have a newsletter and things like that. Now in 2012 is when I was like, okay, we really have to figure this out, make money here. And I need to move out of my parents' house because I was living there since my Boston internship. So now it's been, 3 years and I need to move to the city. So I'm going to really double down on starting coaching with All Access, taking clients, as many clients as I can, and making that extra money to move out and move on. So I did that and I moved out and I started making a little bit of money with All Access. And then I decided on top of all of that, I will self-publish a book. I really just wanted to see what that was like. And I decided to write a book called You Are What You Retweet, which was really silly title, but it was like 140 social media rules to eat by. And I loved social media and I loved nutrition. And so I wanted to combine the two and sort of create this analogy type book where I could talk about, Twitter and like the characters in a tweet are similar to like the calories and the quality that you want to have when you're eating. And that was my cheesy book. Of course, I really wanted the title to be Breakfast, Lunch, and Twitter, but you couldn't use Twitter in a book title because it was trademarked. So that was a bummer. And that's why it went to You Are What You Retweet, because you couldn't say tweet either. Fun fact there. But I did that just to do it, to learn, to know what the self-publishing world was like. I loved writing at the time and I just did it. No one was stopping me from self-publishing, but there was no money to be made there. It was all just kind of like a resume booster for myself, and it did actually lead to something later on that I'll get into. Now we're into 2013 and I've now done about 4 years with Sport Fuel and was feeling ready to move on. And also really getting to the point financially, now that I moved to the city, I actually really needed a full-time job. Like All Access was not full-time income and the part-time money from Sport Fuel wasn't really enough either. So I knew I needed to do something else. And that's where I started just being open to full-time roles. Now, here's the thing. I didn't go on a job board. What happened was I was followed on Twitter by a company. At the time, it was called CJK Foods, which now is called Kitch Fix. And this is a Chicago meal delivery company that followed me on Twitter. And then I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Like this has, their philosophy was kind of around anti-inflammatory diets and, just like helping people that had certain allergies or allergens or the gluten and dairy world and everything, which was very popular at that time. So I was intrigued by it and I reached out and I was like, hey, are you hiring like dietitians? Is there any need for that on your team? I think I could make a really big impact. And he's like, well, that's me. I'd love to meet you and here. So I go and meet with the founder. His name is Josh Catt, and we meet at his kitchen that he's rented out of a community church. This is a startup, and we sit and I'm like, slide over this 1-page paper. Here's all the ways that I can help you. Here's like the job description that I think I could have, given my entrepreneurial experience with my own business, like the marketing, the social media that I know, and then my nutrition credential and my credibility and the fact that I could, help with the nutrition analysis or help counsel the customers that you have just because they were such a nutrition focused company. And he's like, sold. let's get started. I want to hire you. And that's how that all happened. So I started part-time and then transitioned to full-time by that summer. From there, a couple other things that happened that year. I got involved. So I moved on from the nutrition entrepreneurs professional involvement, and I moved on to become president of the Chicago Food and Nutrition Network, which was kind of this relaunched networking group for dietitians and people in food and the food business, like PR and all that. So I did that. And then I also, because of my job at Kitsch Fix, I was going to be doing a lot of like speaking and nutrition education training as a way to market the company. And then I decided I should get improv training at Second City here in Chicago, which was super fun. And I would highly recommend to anyone to find like a 3-day or a week-long immersive training in improv. It really, really helped me at the time just hone my craft around public speaking and feeling like you can have energy and a presence when you're giving talks. It was awesome. So that was 2013. Now we're on to 2014. And at this point, kind of in the trenches with Kitsch Fix, which was this booming startup. Like they started in that community kitchen. 2 years later, they had investors. They had their granola in like nationwide, or not nationwide, but in local grocery stores. They were just booming. I was very busy with that, doing a lot, wearing a lot of hats in that company. And, on top of that, then I get a book deal where the men's fitness author reaches out to me through LinkedIn. He saw that I had self-published a book already, and he connected with me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Men's fitness. Obviously, I had an interest in men's health just with my work with Sport Fuel and working with the Chicago Blackhawks players and Rockford Ice Hogs. And I was like, oh, interesting. So let me go reach out to him and pitch myself like, hey, are you writing any nutrition books? Is there anything kind of coming up for you? And he's like, actually, yes, there is, which is why I was even connecting with you. I'm leaving my position at Men's Fitness, and I want to write a book for men. And long story short, we ended up signing a book deal together and launching a book. It's called Green Foods for Men, which is a really cool experience. Would never write a book again. It was not for me, but I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot. And one of the coolest parts of it was being able to go to LA, like fly out to LA and do a photo shoot for all of the green foods that were in the book, which was hilarious. Like I was truly peaking where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here with like a professional photographer, like helping him place like asparagus in a certain way so that it looks good. And it's like professional, awesome photos done for this book. It was just like a dream to be at a photo shoot for vegetables. So, that happened. And then another peaky moment for me was when I ended up getting an interview, to be on Good Morning America. And they were doing a segment in Chicago, and they ended up finding me from the Chicago Food and Nutrition Network and saying, hey, can you do a segment on like fast food and the downsides of eating fast food? And so they came to the Kitsch Fix kitchen and filmed it. And I was on Good Morning America on like a segment, which was just a cool thing to experience and do. And again, it like a lot of this, as I mentioned before, this part 2 of like my first 5 years was really a lot of exploration, like trying things out. Like I'm trying speaking, I'm trying improv, I'm trying like all of these different new skills at this food startup and working with chefs, right? And writing these books. Like it was all very much throwing myself into things and trying to learn and see what I actually liked and realizing like, oh yeah, I actually don't love, like counseling that much. I felt a little burnt out on it, and I didn't feel like I wanted to get better at it, right? Like there was just something there where I was like not driven to do more with it, which is all what you're really looking for. Like you're trying things out, and then you're figuring, okay, do I want to be even better at this? I think that for me, that was my like filter. Like, do I want to actually know more about this, keep learning about this, skill build in a way that makes me better at this type of role or job? That wraps up the first 5 years. Okay, so lots of skills learned, lots of exploration. Now we're getting into like years 6 to 10 of being a dietitian. And at this point, so it's 2015, and I've sort of, just because of how Kitsch Fix grew so fast, I was really like changing my role a lot. Like every 6 months was something new. So in this final 6 months of being there, my job was to help open and run their first storefront. So the storefront that had like prepared meals that people could come in and buy, or, different snacks and things, and then smoothies, which is awesome because I love smoothies. I love smoothie shops. I think I want to have one like on a beach someday. So I would like said yes to it. I was like, yeah, that seems fun. And that was it. But it was so busy. Like 2015 for me will always be like, Jenny, what were you doing? You were doing so much. it was a lot. Between that plus All Access now at this time was going bananas. It was really growing. I had like a couple virtual assistants that were helping me. I had 20 coaches because I was just throwing, like I didn't have time to like think about that. I was just like doing what I needed to do to survive, to like keep the revenue coming in. But it was so much. And I realized, like, again, I had to change. And I remember like a couple months before I decided to leave, I ended up getting an interview with the Chicago Bulls. And this is in 2015, but I ended up not getting it. This episode is sponsored by Rowdy. Rowdy is a women-owned, family-operated small business that makes quality superfood bars and collagen protein powders to support optimal gut health. So for all you nutrition nerds out there, aka all of you, I think you'll find it really interesting that all of their products have an ingredient called the yacon root. It's pronounced a few different ways. I Googled that, but it's spelled Y-A-C-O-N. And it's a tuber that looks like a potato, but it tastes like an apple. So it's naturally sweet. And it also has prebiotics in it, which is what's going to support that healthy digestion and, get you back to feeling rowdy. So learn more about their products. I think their flavors of the collagen protein sound really good. There's one that's snickerdoodle, which I love, at rowdybars.com. And you can use code ALLACCESS for 15% off your first order. Check them out, and thank you so much, Rowdy Bars, for your support. I didn't get it. They went with a Gatorade consultant that was free, and they did that, and then and they didn't hire anyone. And then I also interviewed at a startup in San Francisco for this like nutrition blog type startup, and didn't get that either. And then I'm like, okay, so now I'm like, I need to figure this out. Like I'm living in a very cheap apartment, like financially, definitely stressed. Like I don't want to not say that, because there is a lot of like financial risk with starting your business and trying to get it to grow and make money and trying to do all these other things, right? So, I mean, I was paying my bills, but it was certainly, there was debt and there was working all hours of the day and like feeling like you weren't, like it wasn't paying off, right? Like for how much I was working. So I decided I really needed to like have a higher level priced package, and I wanted to do like an all-in, kind of all-inclusive package, charge more for that than what I was doing with a la carte coaching, and try to get enough clients to where I could leave Kitsch Fix, right? And like have that money. And I ended up being able to do that, which was really awesome. It was very much a learning lesson, or a lesson in raising your prices based on, the value that you're providing to people, and also just in like the marketing, like the perceived value to have this full program where they get to work with me exclusively. Like that was a big deal and a big milestone moment for All Access. So I was able to get those people to sign up, and then I'm still very busy because I think I had like 25 clients at that point, and was able to leave Kitsch Fix from there. And and then finally go all in on All Access, or so I thought. So this is the end of 2015. In 2016, I get approached by Dawn Jackson Blattner, who works for the Chicago Cubs at this time, as well as she has like her own practice and does a lot of spokesperson work. And we were connected. I mainly like had reached out to her early on in my career. She was kind of a big deal. She is a big deal in the Chicago area and obviously nationwide. But like she was just someone I'm like, I need to know her. No matter what, I didn't think it would get me anything, but like I just wanted to connect with her. And then she was on the board for the Chicago Food and Nutrition Network, so we did some work there. And she knew I was in sports. From there, she approaches me. She calls me up and is like, "I just pitched you to the Chicago Cubs to run the minor league nutrition program that we're starting this year." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you don't even have to interview. You're doing it." I'm like, "Okay, I'm doing it." And so I got that job with the Cubs. This was 2016, and I ran the minor league nutrition program, started it from scratch, basically hired like 5 new dietitians in all the 5 different affiliates. So Iowa, Myrtle Beach, Oregon, like, I don't know, 2 other cities. I can't remember. Yeah, Knoxville, Tennessee, like South Bend, Indiana. Like I went and created clubhouse fuel stations and then managed all of those people and helped coach them through the nutrition program that they were launching. It went awesome. It was such a great experience. We had so much support, like budget from the Chicago Cubs organization. It was great. And that year they ended up winning the World Series. So I ended up getting a World Series ring that year, which was a very historic win for the Chicago Cubs because they hadn't won in like over 100 years. So it was just like this really magical thing to be a part of. Definitely one of my favorite moments as a dietitian. From there, I then, now I'm like kind of in the sports world doing that part-time and then doing All Access Dietetics part-time. And I ended up also then getting recruited to interview at the Cleveland Cavaliers, but I didn't get the job. I interviewed, flew out there, and they chose someone else. So that was just another little rejection that happened, but all good. So from there, I go into my second season with the Cubs, but as that's going, I end up finally getting an in with the Chicago Bulls. Now, mind you, like the Chicago Bulls were always sort of a big dream job for me because I grew up with the five brothers watching the 90s Chicago Bulls, really thinking, wow, that would be the dream. And knowing that like Julie, my mentor, had done it, and, just that, gosh, I really think that could be awesome. So I finally get an in into the organization. So as you know, I didn't get the job in 2015, but now it's 2017. They've changed, their head of performance is different. There's, different like people on that staff. So it's kind of like a new opportunity. And I end up getting a call from the team physician who got my name from this athletic training company called Athletico that I had been doing free talks for and like trying to network with. And I was constantly telling like this one guy who was on there like, hey, I really want to try to get in with pro sports. Like I was trying to get in with the Cubs like in 2013 and really just trying to make sure they knew who I was and that like what my goals were. So he referred me. I go and do this speaking gig in San Diego with him, the team physician, Dr. Cole. And at that, I meet the team psychologist, like the mental performance director. And she's like, you need to meet the owners of the team. Like, I think you'd be a great fit for the organization. We're looking for a nutritionist. And that was it. And I was able to have a meeting with the owners and then have official interviews and go through that process. And then finally in 2017, got the job as the team nutritionist for the Chicago Bulls, which was just unbelievable for me to feel like, even after getting rejected the first time, to come and have this second opportunity to have this was just so awesome. And then I tried to have both the Cubs and the Bulls and All Access and realized very quickly that was too much. So I ended up kind of like finishing out the season, kind of doing two at the same time. So at the start of my first Bull season and the end of my last Cubs season kind of overlapped a little bit, but otherwise was able to close that out and then move on. All right, so here we are now in 2018, getting into the final few years here. And All Access Dietetics at this point, if you can imagine, like with all these other things going on in my career and my focus on sports and like the things going on with the Cubs and then with the Bulls, like to be very, very honest with you guys, 2018, like I was considering not pursuing All Access Dietetics anymore and like just giving up on it, which sounds so sad to say, but I was really at a breaking point where I was like, do I continue with sports and obviously could give it up and I could have maybe stayed with the Cubs and the Bulls and that would have been like full time, or do I believe, All Access Dietetics can really do something here? And at the time, like I didn't even know how to do financial models. I didn't understand like cash flow or expenses or what my pricing should be, all of these things. Like I was floundering. And even though I had done it and I was doing this business and I was learning a lot along the way, I did not have the strategy needed to kind of take it to that next level. And even at the level it was at, it was, making like $20,000 a year for me, like profit. And that was not enough to be like a full-time job, of course. So here we go. It's floundering. Really thought I might give it up. I was going in and out of debt, just with like my cash flow was all over the place. And I realized I need to get a business coach. So right when I was like just able to afford a business coach, I did it. And I started working with him in late 2018 into 2019. And I swear it was game changing for me, really life changing for me, because I was able to learn all the different hats of the business and be educated on strategy and like foundational business skills for the first time ever. Like I was very much teach yourself kind of like, yeah, just a very beginner way of doing things with my business. And it got me a certain level, right? And like we had a really good brand recognition and a great reputation, great service, but there were just so many things that needed to be tweaked. So he helped me do that. And the company I used was called Cultivate Advisors. They're a big firm now. And he was, one of the advisors. And now there's so many more. Like that company has grown a lot. But anyways, he helped me like double my revenue, triple my profit, which was even more important. Like I was making pretty good revenue, but just the way my prices and structure and all these different like details were set up, it was like hurting my profit. So after 1 year, it was boom, like we're back in business, literally with All Access. I was able to bring on a full-time employee to help, which is Susan Stalty, who's our COO, Chief Operations Officer. And that was it. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the Bulls and All Access. So we'll take it into 2020. And of course, as you know, the pandemic and everything was happening. And But at that time, I was also really expanding the team and really adding gasoline to the fire because I was expanding beyond myself. I wasn't just like trying to do everything. And through the magic of that, through the magic of, having the coaching, and then also just in the pandemic, like having a little bit more time, because with the Bulls, it was less time going in, and like the season was shorter and canceled and everything, like all of that was going on, that I was able to actually, like a very small silver lining of the pandemic was being able to put more energy and focus into growing All Access. Now here we go into 2021 with, this is before my 5th season with the Bulls. And I actually almost left after my 4th season, heading into my 5th season, because All Access was growing so much. And I had to ask my boss, like, hey, this is just booming right now. I have like a team, I have employees, I have contractors, all this stuff going on. And I really, it's becoming clear to me that like sports is not going to be like the future for me. Like it's not going to be my full-time thing ever, like this business is, and I need to figure this out. So before my 5th season in 2021, I was able to get my contract hours like cut in half, but then also add a full-time like intern that would be working all the practices and games in the fuel station. And so that was sort of our compromise to make that all happen. And then at the same time in 2021, I was exploring different ideas, testing, I guess like we had just launched the RD exam prep. So in addition to our Get Matched coaching program, we now had RD exam prep through a partnership with Bailey DeBarmore, who's the creator of our Pass the Exam prep. And then we're adding on like review sessions here and all different things, which will slowly, was building up to what we have today with Pass Class. But that was all just exploring and testing things and just trying to figure it all out. And and then from there, we had our first virtual conference, the RD2B Summit, in August of 2021. And I added, at the end of 2021, added on another full-time employee, Emily Merklin, who is our Chief Marketing Officer. So now I have like our operations covered, our marketing covered fully, and we have at this point, like an assistant working with brands that we just started doing, and a salesperson would be joining shortly at the end of this year, Christian, and then Cass was running our DMs and community and doing a lot of reel creation and TikTok and all that. So this is really, we're like full blown business at this point. The coaches are getting filled up, the tutors are getting filled up, like we're going. And so finally in 2022, this year, it was like, all right, it is time to retire from sports and from the Chicago Bulls. So after my 5th season, which ended in May, which at the time of this recording was a couple weeks ago, I finally was able to move on from that, which was very bittersweet, of course. Feel like I had a great run in sports nutrition with 3 pro teams, with the Chicago Blackhawks. They won 2 Stanley Cups when I was there with them in the 4 years that I was there. Helping there. And then with the Cubs, 2 seasons, 1 World Series ring from that. And then the Chicago Bulls, 5 seasons as the head dietitian. And one NBA playoff win there. They weren't so good in the first 4 seasons, and had a pretty great year this year. But yeah, that kind of like rounds it out, working with hundreds of elite athletes, just being like so inspired by them every day, understanding the culture of sports, habit changing, finding people's whys, understanding like their unique stories. Like athletes are so diverse in terms of, their upbringing, their food, where they came from, like the environment they grew up in, like everything is so different. So I really became a great practitioner in that sense of just understanding people's why, understanding what motivates them, moving them along in their journey in a really, really personalized way. I think that was the best skill that I gained from all of that. But yeah, so then from there, we now have All Access Dietetics, where this is my full-time job now with 2 full-time employees, 3 part-time employees, 8 Get Matched coaches, 2 tutors at the time of this recording. Who knows how this will change. And then we launched this podcast. Wow. So there you go. That's like the whole timeline of everything, just giving you the year by year, knowing that future dietitian world was a little bit like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I'm going to get scrappy with this business and just kind of, do my best, work a lot and try to learn new things, and then go into my first 5 years of my career and feel like I got to try everything. I got to figure out what I really like. I got to think of what I'm good at. What skills can I keep building? Where do I want to get better? And that kind of was showing me like leadership, entrepreneurship, even in my role like as a smoothie store manager, even in my role with the Cubs where I was managing like 5 new dietitians, like all of those things I was getting really fulfilled by and really feeling like, wow, I want to build a team. I want to have those skills and do that with All Access Dietetics. But yeah, so then from there, I think I'll just wrap up with 3 lessons and 3 books that I want to share with you all. Now that you've kind of read the story and kind of see like, okay, what was I reading? How was I developing these skills or knowing what to do or having these strategies around networking or finding these jobs or, knowing the decisions to make, because that's all a lot of this is. But we'll start with the first lesson, which is you have to proactively create relationships and experiences to learn. I've said that now a couple times. So I got involved professionally with different groups. I had a mentor with Julie at the beginning. I had a business coach. I created community like with the professional involvement. I also had a mastermind group with 4 other dietitians who had just become dietitians at the same time. So I always say to the students, like, you want to have a mentor, a mastermind, like a peer group that you're committed to, and you guys check in on each other, once a month and hold each other accountable to goals and help problem solve. You want a community, whether that's a professional network or a dietetic practice group or something even on social media where you can find a community. And then a coach. Coach is a bonus for sure. Like, obviously I went many years without a coach, but I fully believe in coaching and the power of coaching, just being around pro athletes and knowing that the benefits that coaches bring to pro athletes, and also just in the admissions coaching that we do and in the exam coaching that we do. And we see the power of having a coach with you through anything can really take you to the next level beyond what you would be capable of on your own. And I will do a quick plug here. So for one thing that we started with regards to masterminds is we now, with All Access, for anyone that gets our Get Matched coaching or gets our past class or RD exam prep, they are eligible once they become dietitians to join our alumni network and then join a free mastermind group. So we have, we just started this and we have 4 mastermind groups going on right now, which we expect to add even more now that people will be finishing up their programs and becoming RDs this summer and fall. But this is how we're going to try to help people create that those relationships and those experiences where they can learn more. The book that I would recommend with regards to this lesson is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I read this when I was a future dietitian, right as I was starting my internship. I learned so many skills. There's like 65 or 70 principles in there. All of them are so helpful, even at different times in your career. Like, I would go back and read it again and find a different lesson that would apply to like what I was dealing with at the time. So The Success Principles by Jack Canfield, amazing. Lesson number 2 is to take leaps before you are ready. Take leaps before you are ready. there's definitely the imposter syndrome thing going on, which I don't know if you know this, but everyone has imposter syndrome. And so when people like discovered it, they were like, oh, we probably shouldn't have made that such a big deal because everyone has it. So it's not like you're weird if you have it. But there's ways that you can manage it, right? And I think action is a big way that you can manage that, many ways, but that's one. I always felt like in anything I did when I was taking leaps before I was actually ready, like doing the self-publishing of the book at like 24 years old, or, doing things that I wasn't necessarily supposed to be doing, starting a business at 21, and making those leaps. To me, the most valuable part of doing something is the feedback that you get as a result of it. So that feedback is the most valuable, and you only get that from action. There's no amount of reading or anything will give you like that quality of feedback that you need. It's actually doing it. It's actually, if it's like a business or, we started coaching, like you have to just start coaching people and coaching them through the process and then getting feedback and then learning and seeing where you can improve and get better. And that's how you do it. From there, there's a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And that book is what I read when I was about to leave Kitsch Fix and launch into like full time for the first time before I got into the Cubs. But that was the book that helped me really feel that confidence and get over like the mindset or what he calls the upper limit. And this idea that we sort of like keep ourselves at this lower limit of comfort, but knowing that you have to get beyond that if you want to see that growth, see that feedback, and take action. So The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks is great for that. Just knowing that you'll always figure it out, like on the other side, is the key there. And the third and final lesson is getting clear on your values and your intentions of your career and of your life, right? But also letting life surprise you and not being afraid to pivot and change. For me, I left jobs, I left entire careers. I retired from sports nutrition. And I did that, and I was able to do that because I was always leading by my values, by like what was important to me in my life. And I had goals. I'm an Enneagram 3, for anyone that's an Enneagram 3, like very achievement driven, very goal oriented. But I learned kind of in that third phase of my career that I didn't want to be driven by worth or by what other people would think, or, especially with pro sports, like how glamorous it is to be working in pro sports. I wanted to be driven by my values and like have goals that were related to those values. So I'd highly recommend two things. Number one, that you would go and find, like you can Google values finder, or like values quiz, and figure out what your values are at this point in your life, and figure out what those, it's basically going to give you like 4 or 5 words that you're going to want to have as like your values that help you filter your decisions. And then from there, a great book that I just read is called Radically Content, which is really good if you do feel like you're that striver, like achiever, and you're kind of like driven in this way that sort of makes you feel like you're never doing enough. This book really, really helps with that and helps you see how you can make decisions in your career based on something different than just that achievement and like feeling worthy, which we're getting into therapy here at this point. But it is a wonderful book, and one I think would really resonate with a lot of you. And I'll just say too, to give you an example, like my values right now, which can change, and I expect them to change, as like life continues, but I have wellness, connection, freedom, growth, and impact. Like those are all the things that I try to apply in my life, in my business, wherever I can. And that will help kind of filter for me as new opportunities come up or things change, how I can have things align with my values as best that I can. All right. Wow. We did it. So the full timeline, the 3 lessons and the 3 books that would go along with each of the lessons. It's very cathartic to say all that and to be so grateful at the end of telling that story for just all the experiences I had, all the mentors, all the people, the support, all the other dietitians that I've met along the way. It really just makes me so happy that I found dietetics, and I was almost going to be a Doritos flavor inventor. It wouldn't have been as fun, I don't think, to do that. But it really just makes me feel grateful that I'm in this field, that were able to make an impact on the future of dietetics for this many years, that I didn't give up on it back in 2018 or so. And yeah, that I'm able to share these lessons with you so that you can learn them and hopefully, create this career and life that you want, that fills you up and makes you happy and it impacts a lot of people. So I hope you found this valuable. And if you have any questions, you can DM either us on Instagram at All Access Dietetics or my personal Instagram if you have anything specific you want to ask me at Jenny Westerkamp with a K. So I'll wrap up here with a final note for you. So dear future dietitian, try new things, leap into new opportunities you don't feel ready for, pivot fearlessly, and always keep growing. Because just like there's no normal path to becoming a dietitian, there is no normal path in your career as a dietitian. And that is the best part about it. Thank you for listening to my career story, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to this episode of Dear Future Dietitian. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I also hope that you take action based on what you learned today. Now, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to us through our website, allaccessdietetics.com, or DM us on Instagram or TikTok. We are here to help you become a more confident registered dietitian to be and make this journey way less stressful for you. So reach out, don't be a stranger, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.